Now you're going to make sure you grab these safety glasses, and you'll notice they're numbered, that belong to your station. So when it's your turn, if you're in station 1, you're going to come up, grab station 1 safety glasses, put them on. Now as you come to the back, you're going to notice that there's hearing protection up on the wall. As we're working, there's going to be times where it's noisy. If you decide you need them, you're more than welcome to grab them at any time.
Alright, we're going to be working on making our cuts using the bandsaw. So we're going to be working on cutting these lines, making our roadway cuts that we measured out. Now, once again, first step we need, safety glasses. Once we have safety glasses on, we're going to come into the back shop production area. Now, I'm going to point out, we have what is called our Rockler dust collector system. Now, your instructor will probably have this set up, but just in case it isn't, what you need is you need to make sure that the dust collector system is on. Now, I'm going to turn it on just to show you. There's a floor vent. This vent right here goes to this hose right here for cleanup time. We want to make sure this blast gate right here is open. If it is, and we turn this on, you're going to see this bag inflate. Now, I'm going to turn it off while I'm demonstrating and explaining how we're going to cut, but I wanted you to see how that thing works. So you need to make sure that's on before you go to use one of the bandsaws, and once again we have 1 through 6. Now, with the bandsaws, you're going to notice back behind them, and I'm going to kind of turn sideways, there are blast gates connected to each bandsaw. So you're going to see you have this little gate right here that can open and close. So you're going to look behind each bandsaw when you go to use one to make sure that that gate is open. Now, if I'm using bandsaw number 1 right down here for my demonstration purposes, so I can turn the saw on and demonstrate how to cut, you're going to see there's a blast gate right back here. So I'm going to go ahead, and first thing I'm going to do is make sure that blast gate is open so it helps collect the dust. Now, next thing I'm going to point out, if we look at our bandsaw, is we have a table right here. We got a little light right here. Our on-off switch is right here. You can see it turns the light on. I turn that off before I walk away. Now, we're going to be making what will be a total of, depending on your clock, if you're doing the basic square, we're going to start with our 1 roadway cut, and then depending on if it's an angle or a round, we'll go back and we'll make some other cuts. On the smaller pieces, we're going to make 1, 2 cuts, 1, 2. So I got a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cuts for sure. If I'm doing an angle, I'm going to have 6, 7. If I'm doing a round, I'm going to have 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 little tiny cuts. The key to these cuts, though, is they are all going to be perfectly straight. Now, so you can see this next step, I'm going to move us so that you can see just the tabletop, and you can see cutting from behind what I'm talking about. Now, once again, we got our on-off switch, and we have clearly marked a red letter X. My fingers should never be inside this X, and you can see it shows it on both sides. Fingers are always off to the side. That includes my thumb. Don't forget that it's a finger too. Okay, so when I go to cut, no on the X, yes to the outside. Remembering my thumb is a finger too.
Bandsaws number 1 and number 2 are going to be set up for cutting your smaller pieces. Now, what you're going to find is right down below there's an orange push rod. You're going to use that push rod to help you cutting these 2 smaller pieces out. The other bandsaws, 3 through 6, will be set up for cutting the larger piece like the video shows. But so once again, Bandsaw number 1, bandsaw number 2 have the orange push rods. They also have what's called a rip fence. That is what makes them the ones we're going to use for cutting out our small pieces. Now, what that's going to look like is you're going to come in to the bandsaw. And when you get to the bandsaw, you're going to see this fence is red, and I've just pointed out previously that you have this red X. Our fingers are never anywhere inside here. They're always on this side of the fence or out on this side of the red X. If they are, you're always going to be perfectly safe. Now, make sure you never adjust the fence, you never adjust the guide. If you need to move the light around a little bit, you do that before you turn it on. But you're going to go ahead and you're going to get the push rod out. So I have the orange push rod. And you'll just set that off to the side next to the bandsaw. When you go to cut, once again, you're going to make sure the blast gate is open. You're then going to notice that when you line it up, it should line up with your lines. And you're going to simply softly push against the fence and push it through, holding with the 4-corner hold in one hand. And if you need to, you can always put your other hand on top. But probably with just one hand, you're going to go ahead and carefully push those pieces through. Now, when you do this, you're going to make sure that you turn the bandsaw on. You would also have the dust collector on. I'm going to go ahead and turn the bandsaw on, and I'm going to turn the dust collector on. It's going to be quite loud, and you're going to notice this when I go to use it. But I turn it on, lights on, I make sure the dust collector is on. I take one hand, I carefully and slowly push it down that roadway. When it goes through, I simply turn my piece around to cut the other side. I then go ahead and carefully push, once again with the 4-corner hold. I then go ahead and turn the bandsaw off. I'm going to turn the dust collector off so you can hear me. I then take the orange push rod. So I have my piece that's going to go on top of the back. I take my orange push rod so my fingers are never in danger. Bandsaw is completely off. I push those pieces out into the back. Then I can reach in and grab them. So once again, I take that orange push rod, push those pieces out, then I reach in and grab them. I'm then going to do the same thing for this other piece. Now, when you come up here, if this line is a little bit off of the bandsaw, it's okay. The bandsaw has been set up by your instructor and it should be right at 1.5 inches. If you notice it seems to be really off, then you could let your instructor double check it. But most likely your measurements are just slightly off, and you would simply cut it the way it is. So once again, I turn the bandsaw on. I make sure the dust collector system is on. I then go ahead and I carefully push against the fence slightly. Slowly move down the roadway. When I get to the end, I slowly turn it around. I cut the other side, doing the exact same thing. I then go ahead, turn the bandsaw off. Lights off, I wait for it to come to a complete stop. I then once again take the push rod, push those pieces straight out. I then can reach behind the blade and I can grab those pieces. Now, when I'm all done, I take the push rod. I hang it back up underneath the table where it was. So there's a little screw there, I hang it back up. I then should have 1, 2 larger pieces, 1, 2 medium pieces, 1, 2 smaller pieces. So I have 2 plus 2 equals 4 plus 2 makes 6. So I have 6 pieces. None of those are scraps. I put them all in my bin until I'm ready to sand them. I then would go ahead and get the dustpan. I clean up my mess on the top of the bandsaw. There's not a huge mess, but I just clean up what little sawdust comes out. I then would go ahead and take the dustpan, come over to the trash can, dump it in. Remember, broom handle's facing down. I come back over and I hang my dustpan back up. Once you have all your small pieces cut out using bandsaws number 1 and 2, you're going to go ahead and use bandsaws number 3, 4, 5, or 6 to cut out the large piece. So once again, that was bandsaws 3, 4, 5, and 6 to cut out the large piece. When you come up to the bandsaw, you're going to go ahead and you're going to once again make sure your blast gate is open. You're going to notice your piece only fits in the bandsaw one way, and that is with the long side to the right. You should have a roadway that you've drawn. You're going to go ahead and line that up so you cut right down the roadway. Now most of you are going to want to use the pinch method to go on the 2 corners. Once again, paying attention to the fact that my hand is outside the red X on both the left and the right. So I line that up. I should never move the guards or any of that stuff out of the way. You're going to turn the bandsaw on, but once again you're going to make sure the dust collector system is on first. So my dust collector system is on. I turn the bandsaw on. I cut straight down that roadway, going nice and slow, using the pinch method on my hands as I go down. If it starts to go crooked, just turn it the opposite direction, doing your best to leave both the line on the face and the base, not going so slow that you start to smell something burning, but you take it nice and easy down that straight line. When it gets done, I turn it off, light will go off, I wait for it to come to a complete stop, I move my pieces out. Now, I have a line left on, and if I'm looking at it this way here, I have a line that's left on right here that I can see, and I have a line left on that I can see right here. If you're making a square clock, you would go ahead and get your dustpan and clean up. If you're making an angled clock, you should have your angles drawn on, and you're going to cut those next. To do that, you're going to have to put your hands off to the side, pinching the corners, or 4-corner hold with just these 2 corners, but taking it straight through, keeping my hands on the outside. I can put a hand on top, but there's never going to be a hand inside those red X's. I go ahead, I turn it on. I once again go right down that roadway, cutting down those lines. When I get through, you're going to have a little tiny triangle. I turn the saw off. I wait for it to come to a complete stop. Never reach in there. Take your clock instead and push that piece out, so it's outside the red X. Then I go ahead and I grab that piece out. But once again, I use my clock to push that piece out. I then am going to go ahead and do the same thing with the other line. So either one hand, pinch, or 4-corner. I cut straight down that roadway once again. When I make it through, I turn the bandsaw off. I take my clock, wait for it to come to a complete stop. I'm going behind, I push that piece out of the X, then I grab it. Now, if I'm doing an angled clock, I have 2 scrap pieces. These little triangles are the only thing you would throw away. If I'm doing a round clock, I still need to cut 2 more little angles so it's ready to go to the electric sander. So I would come into the top one, once again using the 4-corner or pinch method, cut straight down that line, turn my clock a little bit, cut straight down that line, I would go ahead and turn it off, wait for it to come to a complete stop, Then I can shimmy those pieces out over there and I can grab them. I just then would do the same to the other side. Keeping my hand outside that red X. Cut right down my line, making sure I leave my curve on. Turn it, do the same thing. Cut right down that line, leaving my curve on. Turn it off, wait for it to come to a complete stop. Once it's stopped, I can use my clock to push those pieces out, keeping my hand outside the red X. So if I'm doing a round piece, I'm going to have these little tiny scraps and those two triangles. All of my scraps that are these little pieces, from the face only, that's the only place I'm going to have potential scraps, are going to go in the trash. I set my stuff down and off to the side. I take my scraps, put them in the trash can. I come back, I get my dustpan. I sweep up the table. Sweep down below and you'll notice it makes a little more of a mess. With the clock face, I put the handle in there, come over to the trash can. I come back, hang my dustpan up. I now would have my clock face, my clock base, and my small pieces. You would go ahead and go to the next video step.